So although I'm not going to be in class with us today, I do want to make sure that we still go through the first couple of questions on your assignment for today. So at this point, you should already have written down on your score chart what the assignment is that the substitute put under the document camera or wrote on the board for you. At this point, on the piece of paper that you're going to be doing today's assignment, we're going to go ahead and title this 1.2.3a, Domain and Range. And we're going to follow along together and do these questions through the video. Once I'm done with the problems in the books, and I'm not going to go through all of them, I'm going to go through the first set of them, you're going to need to come back and continue and finish this assignment. I'll be checking it next class on Monday when I see you. Then, we're also going to do some of the notes today as well. So, remember, as you're watching this video, if I go too fast, you can always pause it and rewind and replay it if you need to. All right, so here we go. So might be a good time to pause. Go ahead and get your paper sorted out, and then we will start. Okay, we're on question 1-53. We have this function machine that's up here. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that in pink. So this is our function machine from this question. Doesn't look any different than what we've been doing. We're going to use that function machine to try to plug some numbers into it. So if we take a look down at question A, 1-53, we're going to calculate f of -3. Now remember, if anything is inside the parentheses, so like immediately inside the parentheses, we know that's an x value and it's going to get dropped into the top of the machine. So if we go through for A, so go ahead and organize my work off to the side here or underneath. I want to do f of -3. That means everywhere I see an x on that machine, I'm going to plug a -3 in its place. So I will do f of -3 is equal to 6 over, okay, there's the x. Let's plug -3 in. And then continue writing the problem. You know we get to use a calculator, so we're going to go ahead and type this in. So as you type in and go to the other screen, it's a perfect time to pause, type it in, come back, check your answer. Okay. After you have this typed in, you should have ended up with -1. All right, we're going to go ahead and continue with this then. So we need to go ahead and finish plugging in f of 0 and f of 2. So I went ahead and moved my work over to the side here. I feel like we're going to run out of room on this screen. So let's go to f of 0. It's still in the x location, so I'm plugging it in for my x. Oh, forgot my parentheses. So go ahead and pause. Type this in the calculator, see what we get. You should have gotten -2. Okay, moving on to the second part, or third part in A, we want to do f of 2. 6 over 2 minus 3. When we type that in, you should have gotten -6. Okay, now let's take a look at B. So I want to calculate f of 3. So I'm going to take f of 3. Notice it's still in the same location as where the x is located, so I'm going to plug it in for x. Type this in our calculator. And the calculator gives us undefined. So what happened? Well, we got a problem with this. There's definitely some sort of an issue with this. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next screen. And that's going to, so I brought over the function machine and we want to take a look at C. Are there any other inputs, so x values, that cannot be evaluated by this function? Okay, so what I want us to do is we're going to go and do a little bit of guess and check. We've already plugged in a negative number, plugged in -3, and that worked out fine. We plugged in a positive number, and that worked out fine. We plugged in 0, and that worked out fine. I think the issue is there's something about this machine that kind of freaks out if you plug in a specific number. And I want to take us back, and hopefully this is something that we recall from a couple of years ago. since this is a fraction, so if we look at the machine inside, it's actually a fraction, the whole thing. We know, or hopefully we know, we can put any number in the bottom of a fraction. So you can divide by anything. You can divide by 2, you can divide by 7, you can divide by negative 19. I mean, it might get ugly, but you can divide by almost any number that you want. The only thing you're not allowed to divide by is 0. We don't know how to do that. So we cannot divide by 0. That's big. So why was plugging in 3 an issue on the previous slide? Well, it's because if you take a look back at the machine inside where I just highlighted, if x is equal to 3, then we are trying to divide by 0. Because this becomes 6 over 3 minus 3. But 3 minus 3 is 0. This is no good. We don't want this to happen because we don't know how to do this. So I guess the question is, well, C, are there any other numbers that would force us to divide by 0? Okay, so dividing by 0 is the problem. So if I take a look at just the bottom, x minus 3, so just the bottom. Are there any other x values that if I plug it in right there, this whole thing turns into 0? Because that's the problem. And I don't think that there is. If we plug 0 in, that's okay because 0 minus 3 is negative 3. If we plug in 4, that's okay. 4 minus 3 is 1. We know how to divide by 1. If we plug in 26, well, 26 minus 3 is 23. We know how to divide by 23. It's not nice, but we can do it. I don't think that there's any other issues here. So what this gets us into is this whole notion of we have some more vocabulary. We take a look at D. So if I go back to C, my answer is, are there any other inputs? No. No, there isn't. X equals 3 is the only problem. So it's the only problem number. So it's the only one that won't work. If we look at D, the set or collection of numbers that we can use for X in a function and still get an output, so it works, is called the domain of the function. This is going to be one of the vocabulary words that you and I talk about in our notes here. So this is the domain. This has to do with all of the things you can plug in. These are all of your X values. So that is the domain is a description or a list of all the possible X values. So domain, all the possible X values for the function. So describe the domain of that. Okay, so the domain is everything that we're allowed to plug in for X. Well, we can plug in anything we want, but we can't plug in 3 because 3 turned the bottom into 0. So what we can say is that the domain is, well, everything in math at this level is all real numbers. All real numbers. Except X is not allowed to be, so not equal to, it cannot be 3. Because if we plug in 3, we end up dividing by 0, and we don't know how to do that. Okay, we're now moving on to 1-54. Again, if I'm going too fast, make sure that you pause it and rewind. We'll make sure that you're keeping up with these because these are the first beginning problems of today's assignment. Okay, so now we have this new graph, g of x. We've got a picture. Is g of x a function? Okay, this is the stuff that we did in class yesterday. So with a function, when we look at a picture of it, so the graph itself, you and I are talking about being able to pass the vertical line test. So if I draw vertical lines, so straight up and down, I'm only allowed to hit the graph one spot at a time if it's a function. So I'm just going to start graphing some lines. So if I go straight up and down, notice that I only hit the G graph there once. We're good so far. Does that line hit once? Yep, we're good so far. It's only allowed to hit one spot at a time on the curve of the G function. And this looks good. It's only hitting one spot at a time. So, is G of X a function? Sure is, yes. My reason is because it passes the vertical line test. Just like what we talked about yesterday. So yes, passes it, no problem. Which X values have points on the graph? That is, what is the domain? Okay, I'm going to go get rid of my lines, so I want to get them out of the way. Well, if we take a look, and we want to go in the X direction. So X direction is left and right. So what I'm doing is I'm scanning the picture, but I'm only looking to the left and only looking to the right. So I'm going to start from the origin, so right in the middle. And if I move my eyes to the left, I want to move my eyes as far as I can to get to the edge of the graph. Now, if I keep looking left, I've ran out of the G of X graph, so I'm not going to look left anymore. Oh, I'm going to look right. I'm going to look right until it looks like the graph stops right there. So I think that the domain is all numbers between -2 and +4. And we'll talk about different notation or how to describe this. But I think what we can just say for now is that the domain is, well, from -2, so as far to the left as it goes, to +4, as far to the right as it goes. So we'll do from -2 to +4. And that'll work for now. Remember, this is our first day on domain and range, so we're going to do some more. Okay, possible outputs. Okay, output is the range. This time we're looking in the Y directions. So we're scanning the graph and we're looking up and down. That's what we're doing, up and down this time. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start at the origin, and I'm going to look down first. Down until I get as low as the graph has gone. So it looks like that's going to be -1. Now I'm going to go up until I run out of graph. Well, running out of graph is right there. That looks like it. So it looks like we're up at 3 there. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say from -1 to +3. Okay, so range is down to up, so bottom to top. Okay, Ricky thinks that the range of the graph is all of those things, -1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. Is he correct? Why or why not? Well, I don't think so. I think Ricky's missing some things here. If we go from -1 to +3, we have all of the decimals and all of the fractions between those numbers. But if you look here, Ricky doesn't have any decimals or fractions. I think he's missing a ton of numbers. So, nope, I don't think he's correct. Ricky is missing all of the decimals and fractions. So, yeah, he doesn't have everything. He's missing some stuff. Okay. All right, determining domain and range. All right, I'm going to color code this just like I did before. So if you take a look back in the video, you'll see that I did domain in orange. And I'm going to stick with that. and this is in the X direction. So I'm going to go left to right, adding a couple little notes up here to myself. And then when I did range, I used green. This is in the Y direction, and I'm going to go bottom to top. So that's my plan. I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. I'm going to start at the origin, so right at the middle of the graph, and then I'm going to slowly start working my way out. So I have orange, which means I'm going in the X direction. So I'm going to look to the left until I get as far as the graph goes. And I'm going to block it off right there. Because if I go further than that line, I'm not looking at the graph anymore. And then I'm going to go to the right, and then I'm going to block it off. I don't want to keep looking in that direction if the graph stops existing over there. Okay, so if I take a look at this, it kind of looks to me like we're at -3 over here, because I'm not quite at -4. I'm at -3 here, and I'm at +3 here. So I'm going to say that my domain is from -3 to +3. All right, let's do range. I'm going to start at the origin again, and I'm going to look down until I run out of graph. So it looks like it stops right there. Not quite at -4 yet either. And then I'm going to look up from the origin until I run out of graph again. And it looks like that's at +3. Okay, so my range is from -3 to +3. Okay. Oh, this next one. Well, boy, this one's a little tricky. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing, though. I'm going to start at the origin. I've got my orange, so that means that I'm doing domain, and I'm going to look to the left. I'm going to keep looking to the left. Keep looking to the... Well, I got to keep going, because this little end of the graph down there, that guy's still pointing. So I'm just going to keep looking left forever. I'm never going to stop looking left. Okay, well, let's see what happens on the right. Go back to the origin. I'm going to start heading to the right. But if I look here, that side is also still pointing. I'm going to keep looking left and right forever. The domain then is every single number we know. Every single number we know is called all real numbers. So everything, all the decimals, all the fractions, all the negatives, all the positives, every number we can possibly imagine, it's on there. All right, let's do the same thing with the range. So I'm going to start in the middle, and I'm going to look down, 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 down until I get to the, I can't get to the bottom of the graph. That arrow is also pointing down as well. So this thing goes on forever. Okay, well, let's do the up part. So from the origin, up, up. Okay, looks like I'm running into it, but that's an arrow. So this thing is going to keep going up, up, up forever as well. I think the range is the same situation here. This is all real numbers. Okay, so what you're going to need to do after we do this quick little portion on the notes, because we've already done some of this stuff with the problems, we're going to go back and finish the assignment. So make sure you check it against the score chart. But we're going to take a second. So now would be a perfect time to pause the video, put your assignment page to the side for just a minute, and take your notes out. On your notes, we are currently at the bottom of page 3, or we're like in the middle of page 3. So we already did parts of page 3 the last 2 classes. We're going to finish it right now on page 3. So pause, get your notes in front of you, and then when you're ready, put this back on. Okay, so hopefully you've got your notes in front of you now. All right, domain. The domain is the input values. For us, The input values, those are X. Range, those are the output values, and those are Y's. Also called f of X. Remember, we know that that notation might be different, but it's just the fancy name for Y. Okay, we've got 2 examples here that we're going to do to put them in your notes. And remember, we're going to do domain and range again. This is just the first part. So on Monday, when I'm back in class, we'll pick up, we'll do a little bit of review on this, and we'll talk more. All right, I'm going to go ahead and take out my orange because I'm doing domain. I'm going to start at the origin. And I'm going to look as far to the left as I can. Well, it's not going to stop because I'm running into arrows here. So I think this guy's going to keep going forever to the left. And I'm going to go to the right until I run into the edge of the graph. And this one does have an edge here. It looks like it's going to stop. I don't see any arrows telling me to keep going. Okay, so now if I take a look at this value, I need to know what that number is. So if I take a look at that number, let's see what we got. Looks like we're at 15 here. So I would say, I could say this a whole bunch of different ways. We know that the biggest number, so the furthest to the right, is going to be 15. So I think it's all numbers smaller than and equal to 15. So let's do domain. Looks like all numbers less than or equal to and 15 was the biggest number here. So that's going to be our maximum. All right, let's do our range. I'm going to start from the origin and I'm going to go down, down, down. Uh-oh. We got an arrow. It's still pointing. So this thing is just going to keep going down. All right, let's go back to the origin and go up, 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 up. Oh, we got an arrow again. Okay, this thing's going to keep going up. So the range, well, it's going to go down forever and up forever. This is all real numbers. And then let's take a look at the next one. Okay, got my orange out. Start at the origin. Oh, this one's weird. If I start at the origin and I go left, I think I'm good because I can run into the edge of the graph right there. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's at -4. But if I start at the origin and go right, I'm already past the graph. So I think I'm going to kind of back up until I hit the end of it. So notice what I did there. I kind of grabbed my eraser and I started erasing it until I hit the farthest point to the right of the graph. There we go. So starting from the origin didn't really do me any good on that one because I was too far to the right already. So domain is going to be from small number -4 to big number -1. Okay. I'm going to start at the origin. I'm going to go down, down, down till I hit the edge of the graph. That looks like -2. And then I'll go to the origin and go up, up, up until I get to the top of the graph. And that looks like that's at +2. Okay, so it looks like my range is, whoop, forgot my from -2 to +2. Okay, so at this point, you need to go back, put your notes off to the side. You can use them for this, but go back and finish your assignment.